How's it going, League fans, and welcome to the Blame Game for Week 3 of the Summer Split Season 6. I'm Mark Z, and each week after the LCS, I look at the top Reddit comments in the post-game discussion threads to decide if the blame there is justified or not. I'm going to be devoting a large portion of time to one of the more interesting storylines this season in the Smoothie vs. Bunny debate, so let's get right into it. C9 went 1-1 in their week's matches versus TSM and Apex, but they went 0-3 in games with Bunny Fufu and 3-0 in games with Smoothie. This caused Reddit to remark on the disparity between the players' results and on Bunny Fufu's disappointing week. Now, Reddit wasn't overly harsh, but they were very vocal, so I wanted to address some points to make sure that they're not being overlooked, and we'll start with the TSM series. It's true that Bunny didn't individually play that well in games 1 or 3, but if I'm a C9 fan, I'm way more concerned about the fact that this team is consistently making mistakes in the macro game. They're a team of very strong players, but once the turrets start going down, they often are unable to push their advantages if they're ahead, or they struggle to stay even when it's tied. Looking at their matchup in Week 1 versus Echo Fox, we can see that C9 struggles to increase their gold lead at all in the mid game. In Game 2, the gold lead is basically identical from 16 minutes to 27 minutes in, and in Game 3 they have a massive 4K gold lead 10 minutes in, but are unable to increase it at all over the next 15. I think the cause of this issue is that C9 are inconsistent with playing with sideways, and people are often not in the right place at the right time. If you think this is just an issue when Bunny Fufu is playing, well, there are plenty of instances where it happens with Smoothie as well. An example of this is their matchup versus Immortals, where in one of the games, Meteos doesn't help push in a top wave, resulting in Impact getting frozen on and Reignover being able to exploit him for first blood. Moving into the TSM series, Game 1 and Game 3, which Bunny Fufu were playing in, were 2v1s that they got outmoved on the map, especially in Game 3. At 7 minutes into the game, TSM has built up a big wave bottom and look like they're trying to use it to contest red. Sven is standing on top of a ward, however, and Meteos, seeing this, decides to try and trade and counter jungle. Once they realize that no one's coming bottom to protect the wave, TSM look for a dive instead and get an easy kill on Bunny Fufu, which is really just a team error. Whenever C9 is crashing their own big waves, TSM is already in a position to deal with it. Like this example at 9 minutes into the game where even though Haunters get picked and the turret goes down, TSM is still getting a turret on the other side of the map as well. It's not all about the strong side crashing wave either, as TSM has often prepared their weak side to be ready for this play. At 14 minutes into the game, C9 is starting to push in a big wave top, but TSM jumped the play and initiated a team fight with Haunters TPing in behind, who had already pushed out his own wave. I wouldn't really call C9's macro terrible, but just a step behind all the top tier teams, and it can leave them a little exploitable. Where this starts getting complicated is with Smoothie's Game 2 performance, which was absolutely stellar and one of the key reasons they were able to win that game in standard lanes. Smoothie's an extremely strong laner, which is one of the things that caught Piglet's attention at the end of last season, and we can see in this game how good Smoothie can be when he's on. I think C9 lose Game 3 no matter who they put in because they lost due to macro problems, but that's kind of hindsight bias to argue that way because going into Game 3, it seems like Smoothie would have been the better choice. I don't know why Smoothie was subbed out for that game, but if C9's approach is that they prefer giving players experience over winning a series, then I can kind of see where it's coming from. It relieves a lot of pressure off the supports because the mindset is now, I'm going to get my reps no matter what, versus if I play bad, I'm not going to play at all. And I'm not sure I 100% agree with it, but I think I can understand that line of thinking. Once again in the Apex series, Smoothie was outperforming Bunny, but I think there are some upsides that come along with coming in after a loss, and I'll let myself explain.
I think this is something, at the start, Week 1, people were bandwagoning, oh, Bunny's so much better. Week 2 and Week 3, it's like, oh, Smoothie's so much better. But what you don't understand is they ran the same comp twice, Apex. And so the person who goes in to play Game 3 against the same comp is going to perform probably much better because they already have an understanding. We heard Meteos say in the interview, we didn't really know how to handle the comp. Jensen's not sure if he wants to go in, or with Lissandra or kite back, what are we doing? And then you have Reaper watching the game with this guy who's not in the game.
With Smoothie.
Yeah, explaining what the team should be doing, and then he puts him in the next game with the whole team being on the same page now, and you play against the exact same comp with new picks and an understanding of how to beat it.
Right.
Of course you're much more likely to succeed there. So I think it's really rash to just bandwagon onto like whoever's winning the most is now the better support, and I think if you take that mentality, you'll flip-flop a lot this season.
Yeah, that's right. I was too lazy to re-record that thought, so I just reused it. And I probably look a little bit better there. Basically, to wrap up my thoughts, I'm saying that if you don't think Bunny should be getting playing time and blaming his bad play, then I think you need to take a step back and look bigger picture. But if you're blaming the staff for not putting Smoothie in for a chance to win Game 3 versus TSM, I think that blame's fair. The other topic I'll hit on this week is EnVyUs's close 0-2 loss to Immortals. It's often hard to consider a 0-2 series as close, but Envy had a legitimate chance to win both games before throwing them away. A large portion of the blame was directed at Ninja, who had a couple critical mistakes at the end of both games. Is this his fault for the loss in the series, or was it a series of team failures in close late game situations? I don't want to harp on the second game where Ninja probably could have just hit the Nexus to end the game, because that's a hard situation to be in and one that you don't get much practice in because scrims usually don't go like that. It seems to even learn from his mistakes given the third game versus CLG where he's Karma and he's able to secure the last hit on the Nexus when he's the only one alive. Much more concerning to me is what happened to Ninja in Game 1 versus Immortals, where he ends up way out of position because he's chasing to try and get some damage on enemy members, which results in him getting popped. From there, Immortals takes Baron, Elder Dragon, and eventually the game. This has been happening a ton to Ninja, especially versus Victors. It's not just in games that they lose either, as in their game versus Team Liquid, he got exploded at the start of a number of fights. He's playing Swain, who's supposed to be this unkillable mage thing, but he really proved that that's not always the case. The thing is, in close playoff matches, you can't afford to have late game positioning mistakes from your carries because it can and will lose you series. Any blame for Ninja's positioning is totally on point. For this week's High Five section, I'm technically giving it to Germ 2014, but it really goes out to a larger portion of the C9 fanbase. I know C9 is still having a fairly strong season, but overall the fanbase seems very reasonable in their threads when they aren't memeing their faces off. It's usually a lot of people without C9 flares bandwagoning on the Smoothie vs Bunny hate than those with them. That's it for week 3 of the blame game. I know a lot of people were expecting me to probably talk about CLG or Echo Fox, but I already touched on them recently and I don't feel like much changed week to week. Huhi carried some games but looked like hot doo-doo in others, as did the rest of CLG. The topics I talked about this week were things that I've been wanting to touch on for a little while now, and it felt like a pretty good time to do so. I'm always open for revisiting topics in the future though, so check back then. I'm closing in on 10K Twitter followers, so if you guys could just head over there and give me a follow, that'd be super. My EPN really appreciates it. If you don't have a Twitter, then you should make one and follow me because I'm just that cool.